Welcome to Essential Coaching Conversations with Kyle and Asim.
The real, relevant, necessary conversations to help you navigate coaching, teaching, learning, and life.
Coaches, welcome in Season 2, Episode 25 of Essential Coaching Conversations. And Kyle, I think we have a short but impactful banger of an episode today. Based on recent events ripped from the headlines. But before we get to that, as always, we start with our two things, our athlete shout out and our would you rather. Kyle, I'm going to throw it to you for your athlete shout out. You were furiously looking up stats. I'm excited to hear about this right now.
Yeah, so I've been doing some of my favorite greats of all time. Michael, King Griffey. I'm actually going to stick with baseball. I'm going Barry Bonds. Was that yours?
It sure was.
We did it.
It sure was. We did it.
Is that the first time ever, or second maybe?
I think
it happened once before.
Yeah. Barry Bonds was mine as well.
I will say that I think Barry Bonds is the greatest baseball player, certainly the most feared hitter.
You will find zero disagreement from me.
To ever play the game. Oh, by the way, he also won 8 Gold Gloves and was a 7-time MVP. And I don't know. I was looking up these crazy stats of his. And so he's the only person to ever be in the 500-500 club, homers and stolen bases. He's the only person to be in the 400-400 club as well. So not only did he eclipse the 400-400, but he went another level than that. And I don't know if you watch or listen to Dan Le Batard, but my brother and I do sometimes. And he sent me, they'll do a stat of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a stat of the day the other day where it said if you removed all of his stats from his 7 MVP seasons. So remove every home run and stolen base, all of his stats from his 7 MVP seasons. He would still have 440 home runs and 359 stolen bases. No other player in Major League history has ever done that. And that's sans 7 MVP seasons.
Correct.
He was walked 41 times with nobody on base. The intentional walk stats alone in his career, forget the home runs, just the intentional walk stats, 688 times in his career. Albert Pujols was number 2 and had less than 300.
Yep.
Greatest, most feared hitter of all time. So that was me. So that was why I was going with Barry Bonds. And I understand the PEDs. I understand all this and that, but I don't care what you put in your body. You still got to hit a baseball.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That was going to be my argument for all of this. So stats, obviously astronomical. We have agreed on this show. And I think we as a group, like in our, our Thursday night chats or with our other folks, this comes up a lot. What is the hardest thing to do in sports?
Hit a baseball and play quarterback professionally.
Mm-hmm. Barry Bonds, I don't care how juiced up he was. I don't care how much better it makes your eyesight. That was one of the arguments that the stuff he took made his eyesight better. Listen, I don't care if you're wearing them special contacts that are polarized so you can really see the ball with the dark back. I don't care. There will never be another player who has the longevity and the dominance of Barry Bonds. It's just not going to happen. And you and I were in very formative years as sports fans when the home run race was going on with Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire.
No, another number 25, Mark McGwire.
I think Sammy Sosa also wore 25. I could be wrong about that, but he may have worn 25 at one point in his career. Regardless, even those 2 guys who were jacking home runs, they were getting intentionally walked, like, it was a thing, right? It was appointment television. I remember watching, like, I think it was the US Open tennis tournament that happens over the summer, and they cut away from that for an at bat for Mark
Mhm.
McGwire because he was about to break the record, right? And I don't care how juiced up they were, like, I think all 3 of those guys should be in the Hall of Fame because they still had to hit the ball. And not only did they hit the ball, they hit the ball so well, and it has nothing to do really with like the strength that they put behind it. It's the fact that they were making contact the way that they were, and their timing and their execution and all of those things. To me, Barry Bonds is the greatest baseball player of all time. Offensively, defensively, is there special teams in baseball? I don't know, but like this man was the best baseball player of all time. And even before, like you said, with the 7 MVP seasons, you take those away, like he still was that dude. Remember when
Yeah,
he
he
was
was
like a skinny little dude on the Pirates,
yep. He still
stealing
was the
bases
MVP in
left and right?
'95. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the guy was just a
Oh, that was
baseball
Sammy, excuse me.
prodigy.
Sammy Sosa wore 21.
21. Dang it. Okay.
Yeah, close.
Close. So I mean, I Barry Bonds is the easy choice for this. No one will touch Barry Bonds. Now, Tony Gwynn, amazing career, right? Like I would put him at kind of like 1B, but Barry Bonds to do what he did in the modern era of baseball is like unbelievable.
Yeah,
In any
you s
era of baseball is unbelievable.
the amount of PEDs you have to take, whatever, if you get intentionally walked 41 times with nobody on base, and they're just like, "Meh, I don't wanna do that." This guy hit 306 career average against Randy freaking Johnson.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I know,
Like,
I know, I know. It's wild. I mean, like the the eye test, like, how, like, all these commentators were like, "Oh, well, does he pass the eye test?" Barry Bonds passes the eye test. Does he pass the stats test? Without a doubt. What test does Barry Bonds not pass? A drug test.
a drug test.
I'll be here all night. Right? But realistically, like, Barry Bonds is enough said. He's just there is nobody better.
To
Nobody
me,
has done it.
the only difference between what I just sort of casually watching baseball now when I was really into it in the '90s as a kid, the biggest difference between the sort of the roid era and the non-steroid era is that the ball's not going into the upper deck anymore. Guys are crushing the ball and they're landing like 8 rows into the behind the wall. All those Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, like home runs that were going 500 feet, that just means they go 380 feet. They're still home
Right.
runs.
They're still
You
home
still
runs.
have to hit the freaking baseball. And
So here's my question to that. All right. Do you think that there will come a day in baseball where they recognize that these guys who were in the quote unquote steroid era of baseball were two things. Number one, good for the game from an exposure standpoint. And number two, that they were legitimately the best players to play the game.
I do, because eventually all the old baseball writers and stuff that are keeping them out, they're gonna die off, and you'll end up with a new generation that will eventually not know or care, and they'll eventually get in. Now, it might not be in their lifetime,
Sure.
but I do think that eventually I do think eventually they will get in. It's similar with I didn't think Reggie Bush was ever gonna get his Heisman back or
Mm,
USC was ever gonna get, but the nature of everything has changed, like
sure.
NIL and cheating and getting a car when you weren't supposed to get a car. Like, could you imagine telling anybody nowadays what Reggie Bush got in trouble for?
I don't even remember what Reggie Bush got in trouble for.
Correct. Like it's nothing. Like we don't even care. I remember who was the at your Oklahoma here, the quarterback who was getting paid like $20,000 a year to work at a car dealership. And it was like, "Oh, you can't do that because that's beyond a reasonable amount," or whatever. He was some quarterback at Oklahoma back in the day. And now it's like, I mean, Calipari was having Memphis kids working at FedEx,
Right.
on the books, taking care of them. It doesn't matter context and nuance and, cultures change and what's wrong today won't be wrong tomorrow and vice versa and this and that. They eventually will all get in. That's what I think.
Does that go for Pete Rose as well?
I I am shocked that Pete Rose is not in now with the nature of gambling and everything that we're
The
doing
top of
on
the 6th inning brought to you by FanDuel,
yeah,
right?
and
Like,
we can't believe that some guy's been suspended for gambling on, games or whatever. I do
banned
think
for life.
eventually I'll say this, bold prediction. I think eventually Pete Rose gets in, but I bet you a Barry Bonds gets in before Pete Rose.
You bet me. See, here we're full of jokes tonight. You bet me that
I
Barry
bet
Bonds will
you.
get in before Pete Rose?
But what's crazy to me is that Pete Rose bet on himself. It wasn't like
Mhm.
he was throwing games or anything
Right.
like that. Like you could feasibly argue that Barry Bonds was cheating at the game,
Right.
whereas Pete Rose was not. Why is what Pete Rose did seems to be in a lot of people's eyes worse than Mark McGuire having a bottle of Andro, whatever, in his locker.
Mhm.
So, but
So, not to belabor the point, but,
they
like,
should all get in. I'll say that.
Pete Rose literally bet on himself. He was like, "I am going to perform so well in this game, and I'm going to make more money than my contract tells me." Like, that's the ultimate level of, like, "F you, I'm really good at this." Right? That
Well,
alone, he should get in.
that's what we want all of our great athletes
Yeah, it wasn't
to be
like
like,
the
right?
Astros, right? The Houston Astros who were like, tipping signals and beating on trash cans and all of this stuff, right? And even that, like, that's a little questionable as to whether that even matters or not. But like, Pete Rose should definitely get in. There are worse things that have happened in baseball that we don't even know about, right? There's worse things that happens in every sport that we don't even know about.
Oh, there's no doubt, especially from a well, because you're doing all of that based on like the integrity of the game, not
Hmm.
whether you're a good human being or not. You can
Right.
beat up your girlfriend. You can, get into a drunk driving accident. You can do that. You can do that. And maybe take 6 months off, lay low for a little
Hmm.
bit, then you get a multi-million-dollar deal and eventually work your way into the Hall of Fame.
I mean, look at these guys at the University of Georgia. Like, that is the DUI capital of the world right now.
Mhm.
And they just keep, you know, no problem, whatever, right? Anyway, um, as you all can tell, this is going to be a very casual episode because we have a lot to discuss, and Pete Rose and Barry Bonds are the least of our concerns today. But let's get to the would you rather, and I think this is fairly topical as we have the world's largest sports event happening. Um, Kyle, did you hear the news though that it's not all going to be happening? Well, when we get to the LA Olympics, they're not all going to be happening in LA. Did you hear
Yeah,
about
that
this?
that doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense. Two events, softball and canoe slalom, will be happening in Oklahoma City. I don't get it. Anyway,
Well,
let's
when I
talk.
think of Oklahoma City, canoe slaloming go hand in hand. It's like Idaho and potatoes. So I guess
Yeah, with all those bodies of water they have in
in
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Having lived in Oklahoma, I can tell you there are not very many bodies of water. In fact, I don't think there are any like I think they're all man-made, if I'm not mistaken. Which canoe slalom would be man-made for sure. But today's would you rather, and this is for a lifetime, all right, not for a certain number of you. This is for the rest of your life, for the rest of time. Would you rather be without the Olympic Games, so that's both summer and winter, or the men's and women's World Cups?
This is tough. I love me some World Cup. I really do. But I'm gonna have to say, give me the Olympics.
So you're keeping the
I'm
Olympics.
keeping the Olympics
Okay.
only because there's just more going on in the Olympics. I can consume different sports and so on and so forth. Plus, you're going to throw in the Winter Olympics for me. So to me, that's kind of a kicker. But I would rather watch that and plus, little patriotic pride, like put it on USA, Katie Ledecky, like watching her destroy people by 20 lengths. Like
It was
you're gonna
unbelievable. Did you
watch.
see that? Did you see that video where she was, like, all the way down on the other end and everybody was
Yes,
swimming the other way? Like, freaking
yes.
unreal.
So again, we've talked about this before. Like I do love soccer, especially at the highest level, played really well. But there is something to me that's very special about somebody that will dedicate their entire life for 9.6 seconds
Mm,
and watch that. And then again, we're usually pretty good in a lot of things, so I enjoy watching us win. Um, so I would probably go with the Olympics just because it's on a grander scale, maybe a little bit more comprehensively entertaining.
mm.
Um, because I'll be more interested in the breadth of it. Whereas in the World Cup, there might be some, group games and stuff that I'm not paying as much attention to. So I do think this is really good and really difficult because I do love me some World Cup every 4 years. But I'd probably say keep the Olympics.
So I would agree with you, and I'm surprised you didn't mention this, but there is soccer in the Summer Olympics.
Well, and I thought about that too. Like you get to keep that as well. Now, to me, it's not the same
It is not. It is definitely
thing.
not the same. Yeah.
It's not the World Cup. So I would, but yes, I can still watch soccer in the Olympics.
Mhm. Yeah, I would keep the Olympics, and not so much just because of, like, any particular sport in the Summer Olympics, but the Winter Olympics might be some of the most exciting sport that you'll ever watch. Like, and for 3 weeks every 4 years, we all become fans of curling. We all become fans, and I am genuinely scared of anybody who participates in this sport, of, like, skeleton and luge, and it's like I can't even imagine just sliding down a track at 80 miles an hour with my face an inch from the ice. You know what I mean? Like,
I
that to me, that is enough to be like, you know what? The World Cup, like, I'm okay. We don't need it. We have soccer in the Summer Olympics. We can watch all these other sports. It's amazing.
It's not that we fall in love with curling. We all become experts after 15 minutes.
1000%. Yeah.
Literally never watched the sport in my life, and then after about 20 minutes, I'd be like, "Oh, there's no way that's gonna work. Like, what are you doing, you idiot? How could
Sweep
you're
faster.
going the wrong way. You weren't sweeping fast enough. Like, oh, that's a terrible throw. Like, that's not gonna work." And like how instantly we become same thing with gymnastics or even
Hmm.
diving. Like after 20 minutes of watching diving, I got it all figured out.
Right.
I know exactly what they're trying to do. I know and I also think too with the Olympics is we have seen these like incredible runs of dominance.
Yep.
USA gymnastics, Michael Phelps, Michael Johnson all the way back, Usain Bolt, Katie Ledecky. It's just unreal to see like the best of the best of the best, and then everybody else is still not good enough. They're Barry Bonds.
Right.
Like,
No, it is truly amazing too to see how, like, how specialized each sport is, to where they are able through their training systems, right? Their
yeah,
systems, shout out to the next time we do this, their training systems and like how they operate, to where they are able to take like a world record that was set maybe in the last Olympics, and now all of a sudden they're breathing down that time in qualifying.
mhm.
Right, and it's just this, it is truly amazing. I mean, the 16-year-old kid from Bullis High School in Maryland,
The sprinter,
yeah,
unbelievable.
unbelievable. But it's just, the humans are just gonna keep getting faster and
Yeah, because
faster. I mean,
you see things that were previously like not known to be possible, and
right,
at some point, this is where I think this is a little interesting. Like at some point, you can't run a 1 second 100 meter. Like
right.
there's got to be a cap.
Yeah,
I don't I
yeah,
don't know what that cap is, but it's gonna take some amount of time. Like, we're not gonna jump 10 feet over a pole, I wouldn't think. So, like, at some point, you're gonna have to you would think that you're running out of achievement, you're running out of progress, and like Mondo Duplantis, who's I think he's Swedish
Swedish
or
pole vaulter, yeah.
Swedish. He went to LSU. He lived in like Lake Charles. He's
Mhm.
from Sweden, but or he's from Louisiana. And I remember watching that kid pole vault in high school at the state track meet, and the track meet's like over, but he hasn't hit. Like he's done one. It's been over for
Yeah,
like an hour, but he's still like breaking his own record and just kept
right,
going. And everybody was like, "Holy crap, who is this kid?" And here he is, 10 years later or whatever, crushing everybody in the Olympics, doing his thing. And like, but you would think at some point you can only jump so high, you can only run so fast, you can only row so fast. Um, but every 4 years, like you said, like, we're continually breaking a new barrier or something like that, and there's something special about greatness, and then when, these backstories of how kids get started and the sacrifice that it takes, mom and dad taking
right.
them to this and that. But every parent, maybe to throw this back to some of our previous episodes, every parent thinks that their kid is the next Katie Ledecky or Usain Bolt. So that's why we're spending all this money on all this travel and these specialized lessons, because if we don't start learning how to throw a curveball at 7 years old, we're never going to be able to strike out Barry Bonds, when they become a major league pitcher or whatever. But
Right.
to everybody else's credit that is in the Olympics, somebody has to get there.
Mhm.
Somebody's gotta be a gold medal winner in all of these events. So, I mean, yeah, it is possible, and, there's too much storyline and relatability, in some of those things. Because the other interesting thing about Olympics to me is, like, archery, rifle, some of these things, even, some of these other sports, it looks like you and I could do those things,
Definitely could not, though.
you know? And it's like, man, like, I don't know. It's just there's too much of that story built into it that I wouldn't want to pass up.
So, as I listen to a radio show out of Washington, DC every day, it's Elliot in the Morning on DC 101, and he said something the other day, I don't remember what they were talking about, but he referred to sports as the ultimate reality show, and I think that's true, right? And these storylines that are just baked into the Olympics, like, there's no drama. You know what I mean? Like, you don't there's not, like, personal beef. Like, when was the last time you heard about personal beef between Olympians? Like
Mm.
Michael Phelps and Ian Thorpe back, like, 12
Yeah,
years
there's
ago
some
or something, you
swimmers
know what
that
I
don't
mean?
like each other. There's
Yeah,
some sprinters that don't like each other. But even then, like, at least coverage of the Olympics, and maybe we don't get into it as much because it happens every 4 years and it's not like on us all the time. But it seems to me like, and I'm generalizing, that there is a mutual respect of like, we're gonna run, I'm gonna run, you're gonna run.
mhm,
I beat you. There wasn't an official involved. There
right.
wasn't like the ball didn't that we needed a replay to see whether or not you were going to get possession, or there was a bad spot from an official, or on a first down or anything like that. Like, at the end of the day, is you and me, and I beat you. I beat you. If I don't, I don't. Like, and there, I do think there's a certain level of respect amongst athletes in those arenas.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, I think what's amazing is, like, once every 4 years, these Olympic sports captivate the world, and yet, when we try to get people to show up to a literal Olympic sports in high school and college, nobody goes to the games, or nobody goes to the matches, nobody goes to the track meets, like, they don't care. You know what I mean? It is fascinating too on that front of, like,
Oh, I
yeah,
know
we
what you
would
mean.
yeah, I know exactly you know exactly what I mean, right? We're trying to get people to go. That's been a perpetual thing even in my career, like, how do we put butts in seats for things that, purportedly people don't care about, but then at the end of the day, like, they're all glued to their TVs for 3 weeks watching less than 10 seconds of somebody running. You could do that down the street at your high school, go support those kids.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, no, I that was a really good would you rather. Coaches, chime in, let us know what you would pick. Would you do without the World Cup or do without the Olympics? Summer and winter, and then men's and women's World Cup. But let's get to the topic du jour here. And I'm pausing for dramatic effect. Kyle, you and I have a podcast.
We do.
I am expecting a call from whoever has an opening next because JJ Redick has been hired as the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, the second most storied franchise in the history of men's professional basketball in the world, in this country at least. I don't know about the world, but in this country. And his only coaching experience is fourth grade AAU. What are we doing?
I don't know. To me, what makes this story so good, is I tweeted or quote tweeted something a month ago, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's a it's a parody account, it's a fake account, or whatever," and it was like I get that,
Mhm,
but it doesn't make it any less real or true.
mhm,
This is not parody that we are living in today,
mhm,
and my favorite part of this entire story is this is not we went right after JJ Redick. This was not that we went after 10 amazing coaches and then got to JJ Redick. We went from Dan Hurley
mhm,
seemingly to JJ Redick at 0 to 60.
mhm,
There was, and I do think there is a bit of an issue in all of our major sports leagues of a retread, recycle the same head coaches over and over again. Like, how many times is Doc Rivers going to get a job? It's the same. Anytime a job comes open, Budenholzer, Monty Williams, like it's
mhm,
the same. NFL is no different. If Mike McCarthy left the Cowboys tomorrow, he'd be getting another head coaching job somewhere. And so, but it's never like new blood from within. These
mhm,
assistant coaches that have been doing it forever, or the ones that are probably the brains behind the organization in these systems. We went from Dan Hurley, who has 0 NBA head coaching experience. Now, again, doesn't mean he wouldn't be a great one. He's obviously been a very successful college head coach,
mhm,
but that doesn't translate necessarily to the NBA. Think about Nick Saban going to the Dolphins, then to LSU, so on and so forth. And there might have been, other candidates and phone calls and things in there that we're not privy to throughout this process. But at least publicly, it was like we either want Dan Hurley 1A, and we're going to offer him the moon. He says no. All right, give JJ a call.
mhm.
I don't know if that is hilarious to me, or is it concerning? Should it piss you off? Is it disrespectful to the game of basketball and the art of coaching as a whole? How many people out there are qualified for that job? How many more people are more qualified to coach a fourth grade AAU team than JJ Redick? And this is obviously aside from the player. I love JJ Redick, the player. I loved him at
There is
Duke,
no
loved
argument
him in the
whatsoever.
pros.
Yeah.
It's not him as a person or anything like that. But one of the funniest things I saw on social media today was, you know, Kenny Atkinson going up for was it Cleveland,
Yeah.
the Cavs job, and somebody quote tweeted that, and they're like, "Wow, what a bold hire that is." He has almost 0 podcast experience, and I thought that was freaking hilarious.
I saw that. That's so funny. Yeah.
But the fact that that is funny because it's true and it's real is crazy to me, that the pathway to, and maybe this is where the conversation in for cereal needs to go. We have talked about the pathway of player to coach. Now we have to sit here and have a conversation about entertainer to coach.
Mhm,
What we don't get to have conversations about is the natural pathway, or what should be, what we would think to be the natural pathway of coach development to coach. JJ Redick didn't even get this because he was a player. He got this because him and LeBron are boys on a show, I'm guessing. And maybe he'll be freaking incredible. and it'll open up a whole new way of doing things for everybody. And the people making the decisions in the LA front office are just that much smarter than we all are and that more innovative than we all are. And we'll all have to sit here and kind of take it. But the fact that this is even possible is absolutely mind blowing to me. And to think that you could argue that you and I are more qualified to do this than he is based on professional development, coach development, that progression and pathway is I'm really at a loss for words. I'm interested in what I'm hoping you have some words because as we were talking about throwing this out there, I really like it's a lot of just gasping.
I think the pearl clutching is in this situation fairly like I get it. I
It's
was
warranted.
it's very warrant. That was the word I was looking for. I was going to say necessitated, but that doesn't make sense. It's absolutely warranted. Um, and it's sort of is like a kick in the gut too of like you can put forth all the effort and listen, nobody's sitting here saying you and I want to coach the Lakers. I have no interest in that. But you look at somebody like Sam Cassell, long playing career, has been coaching for the last almost what 15, 17 years. I don't remember what the stats are. And Sam Cassell is like, what was he, third behind Dan Hurley, JJ Redick? And again, like JJ Redick had an extended interview with this podcast with LeBron. And it shows you also how much power the players have now
Mhm.
that they can sort of go out and tell the organization, hey, and maybe there's only one player in the league that can do that, and it is LeBron. But he's going to tell the Los Angeles Lakers front office, this is the guy.
And this is LeBron at like 39 years old. This isn't
Correct.
29-year-old LeBron, prime
Correct.
Bron.
This is billionaire Bron,
Yes.
right? So
This is draft my kid Bron.
correct. So I mean, listen, as a player, I loved watching JJ Redick. He walked so Steph Curry could run, right? He walked so Jimmer Fredette could run, so Steph Curry could fly. Like totally, like one of the greatest players of all time in college. 15-year pro. I get it. Dude's been in the locker rooms. He knows the dynamics. The human component is there, right? We can assume that based
Mhm.
on the relationships that he has and all of that. And will he put together a staff that makes him look good? Sure. But at the end of the day, like the buck stops with him and the buck has never stopped with him. Except for on the fourth grade AAU teams that his sons were on.
And that's so his he coached his sons.
Mhm.
So really that was a nepotism job. It
For those
wasn't
not
like
watching on YouTube, I was just vigorously nodding. Yeah.
it wasn't like he beat out 20 other candidates hoping to coach this
Correct.
AAU. We created an AAU team for your kids and you coached
Correct.
it.
Correct. The Brooklyn Hoops Academy, Brooklyn Basketball Academy, something like that. So, like, listen, there's also precedent for this happening in college women's basketball. I don't know if you remember who the coach was at Arkansas before Mike Neighbors. Do you know? Jimmy Dykes,
Mm,
hired straight from the broadcast booth.
mm,
Zero coaching experience, had never even been an assistant before. But Hunter Yurachek, I think, was the AD there. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. But whoever the AD was hired Jimmy Dykes straight from broadcasting the games. And as somebody who works in girls and women's basketball, like that was a big deal.
mhm.
Like, how the hell do you skip over all of these other people that have paid their dues, that are working their ass off, that are developing, that are doing the best they can, and all of a sudden, this dude who has literally been commentating on the games gets to just jump in front and just get a head coaching job at what should be one of the top premier women's basketball programs in the country.
Well, it's
And
because
with Mike Neighbors, it is.
they know the game. They're around it, they see it, and it's like, man, it's totally it's the same. There's just a similar jump from being an assistant to a head coach. There's no guarantee
Sure.
that a good assistant coach would make a good head coach. Same way, there's no guarantee that a great college coach would be a pro, and vice versa. But like
Everything has nuance.
Kenny
Everything has nuance.
Atkinson's still getting the Cleveland Cavaliers job. He wasn't qualified for the like. I mean, hell, give me Don Staley, give me Becky Hammond, give me somebody from overseas. Like, go get there. It's just amazing that that could even that it could remotely be possible. And maybe the part of this that we haven't talked about is that just nobody wants the Lakers job. Nobody wants to coach a aging 39-year-old billionaire LeBron who wants to draft his son, and you're not going to be good. And you know you're going to get fired in 2 years. Like, maybe they did call 40 other people and they all said no. Like, very, very possible, very valid. But as you mentioned, or maybe this was in the pre-show or something, it's not like this came up out of nowhere. This JJ stuff has been out there for quite a while.
I would
And
say at
then
least since the
six,
season ended, like 2
six,
months ago.
8 weeks, six
Yeah.
weeks, and then just sort of to insult to injury for people of the profession as you go up there, and this is your first impression at this press conference, and somebody asks as he said, a valid question, and I hear you, but I don't give an F.
Mm,
I'm gonna cuss a couple times and be like, I don't have to do that. I just want to coach basketball. Well, brother, you're the head coach of the Lakers. You don't get to just coach basketball.
mhm.
No coach in any profession at any level gets to just coach basketball.
I would get
It's
that question all the time when I worked in college basketball. Like, when do I get to just coach?
it's one of
There's
the
no such
biggest
thing.
pain points that you and I hear through our work at Essential Coaching.
Mhm.
Everybody loves coaching. It's the 98 other made up statistic, 90% of the other stuff that you have to do to get to the coaching. And just sort of I'm projecting, I watched a 6-second Twitter clip, but just sort of the arrogance behind it of like, well, I don't have to do that. I coach the Lakers. Of course I deserve to be here. Of course I don't have to answer your question. Of course I'm going to do this. It's just, it would be really great to be in a group chat with every NBA assistant coach right now and be a fly on the wall for those meetings and those phone calls and those text messages to know kind of what everybody is really thinking. And I also have to think that the competitive nature of everybody in that business, like when a player gets drafted 30th,
Right.
they'll wear number hey, 29 of you. Every assistant coach who's responsible for an LA Lakers scout next year is freaking coming for you.
Mhm.
It's going to be the best scout they've ever had in their life.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody wants to be the one that gives JJ Redick his first career win.
Well, it's like that, it's like from The Last Dance with the meme now, but when Michael Jordan is saying it, and I took
Yeah,
that
I
personally.
took that personally.
Like I feel like there are probably a lot of NBA assistants. There are probably a lot of college coaches that are like, dude, I like if John Calipari hadn't gone to Arkansas, John Calipari might be the head coach of the Lakers.
Right.
Wasn't he
Yeah,
rumored for
we're
that
not
job too?
calling Bill Self. We're not
Right.
calling and I've been a proponent for sure of give me the person who's been the head coach at the lower level. And this is where we probably get to have a little bit of fun here.
Yeah,
And JJ Redick technically was a head coach at a lower level.
he sure was.
He called a timeout. He probably cut a kid on that fourth grade team.
Not his
I've
son though.
been
Not his
I've
son though.
been very adamant that I give me the D3, national champion, give me the
Mhm.
JUCO guy, give me the D2 person, give me the lower D1 moving up versus the sexy assistant. I'm all for that, but it is a bit perplexing that we seemingly went from Dan Hurley to JJ Redick like that. Um, and all we know is what we know today. Again, there could be more to the story, but um, it's got to be a crushing, crushing blow for a lot of people in the coaching
Sure.
profession that have, like you said, worked and paid their due. And there's value in paying their dues. And just because you've been around for 20 years doesn't mean you know what you're doing and doesn't guarantee you anything at the same time. But I know a lot of really, really, really good coaches, leaders, managers, tacticians, learners who do not have coaching jobs at any level right now, respective of where they are.
Mhm.
And the fact that people that do get jobs, the way they get them and how they get them, knowing that there are, for every one of them, there's 10, 20, 30 others out there who not only don't have a job, but can't get a job, can't get a call back, can't get an interview. Like, it's amazing to me that just how the system and the process is has really sort of set itself up for what's, what that criteria is, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Just that just that we could even get to this point where we're having this conversation. I
Yep.
never in a million years thought we would have a podcast. I never in 2 million years thought we'd have a podcast talking about JJ Redick being the head coach of the, and it's like you said, it's the freaking Lakers. This is not when the Suns were like 8-60.
Or like when the Hawks were traditionally the worst
Just
franchise in the
terrible.
history of
Yep.
basketball.
Who
Yeah.
wants the Hawk job? Nobody, right? Like, nobody want that. We're gonna have
Right.
to go through 10, 12, 15 people to finally find somebody that we think is eligible, worthy, and will at least say yes. The Lakers are not perennial right now. They're not very good. They're
Hey, they
barely,
won the in-season tournament.
trying to get they were champion, hang a banner, um,
Yeah.
trying to get in the playoffs or whatever, but and maybe the NBA is the only league that this would work because LeBron is LeBron and the players have that kind of power. It's hard to imagine I don't, Dak Prescott walking into Jerry Jones and being like, "Hey, I want to hire Gus Johnson
Yeah, right.
as my head coach."
Right. No, I mean, I think that'd be something similar. In football might be like, hey, I want to hire Greg Olson,
Mhm.
right, or Tony Romo,
Mhm.
right? These the
Yeah, I guess Romo
commentator,
would be a
the
would
media
be a good.
personality who played for a while and all that. Honestly, like I think, and I posed this in our Thursday night group chat, but like, what is the role of the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, right? What is the role of the head coach at all? If the experience piece doesn't matter, if I'm sure in the interview process he had to prove something,
Mhm.
but I think he had an extended interview process by having the podcast with LeBron where they're, breaking actions down or all this stuff. And to the layperson, yeah, that's like cool coaching concepts. And like, people were like freaking out about the videos and like, oh, this is the greatest content ever. And it's like, yeah, but like, okay. I mean, if that's what does it for you, sure. I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe and it's possible. Listen, y'all can tell us, are we just being haters about this, right? Like, is JJ Redick the best person for the job? I'm not sure there are too many people that would argue that that is true, that he is the best person for the job. But you know who ultimately thinks he's the best person for the job? The people who hired him, right? And this goes kind of to what we've talked about with like ADs who continually make terrible hires, or professionals who make terrible hires. At some point, it's not the hire's fault.
Mhm.
It's the system that allowed it to happen.
Right. Yeah, this really doesn't have anything to do with JJ.
No, it's
He was
not
offered the
nothing to do
job at
with
the
JJ.
LA Lakers. You say yes, like,
Right.
not on him necessarily, but it, like you said, it's the environment and the system in which that it allows for that outcome to play out.
Hmm.
And again, it's late and I'm tired and I just don't have better words for it. But it is pretty mind-blowingly remarkable, like, that we could get to that point. And what
Mhm.
is the role of him? Like you said, like, yeah, he might know how to break down a Spain pick and roll action, but that's what his bench is for, right? Like, he's not even going to be doing a lot of that. And it may be that his role is to quite literally just keep LeBron happy.
And that's very possible that that's what that is.
And maybe
Just
he's
to
the only
keep the
person that
peace
could
with
do that.
LeBron. Yeah.
And that may work, but it would be neat if he got up there and instead of dropping some F bombs on the reporter who's trying to do her job, he can just be like, "Look, man, I'm a babysitter.
Mhm.
That's what I'm here to do.
Just say it for what it is.
I'm here to keep this 39-year-old aging superstar who is the hardest person to coach in sport." I'm not saying LeBron himself. I'm talking about the aging superstar.
Mhm.
They're the hardest people to manage across sport. That's your first experience. It's not like you've got this Anthony Edwards, 21-year-old freak fly through the air, will do whatever you say. Yes, sir, I'll go sacrifice my body up against the 7 footers and, old school Russell Westbrook, old school D Wade. It's not like you're been given Luca,
Mhm.
anything like that. Like you've got the aging superstar. And maybe he is the only person in the world that will know how to LeBron whisper and put the pieces around him and find the staff. I mean, I don't care anything about the Los Angeles Lakers. I never have. But now I'm probably gonna have to watch the first few games just to see how that plays out
You know they're gonna be like the Indiana Fever, and they're gonna put the Lakers on TV
on everything.
98%. Yep.
Yep.
98% of their games are gonna be on national television.
Maybe we should get the Fever and the Lakers to play each other. Just be Caitlin Clark playing and JJ Redick coaching.
The game of basketball would explode.
Yeah.
Like, the basketball would just, like, screw the World Cup or the Olympics, like, we would be without
Yeah, give me
basketball
that.
forever. Yeah, no, it
Give
would
me
be
JJ
big.
Redick coaching against Caitlin Clark.
No, can't do it. Can't do it. Oh, man. Well, listen, it gives us hope that, maybe, you know
Well, we've been doing this all wrong, man. We have studied the tape, we've gone to the clinics, we've had the reflective conversations offline, we have put in the hours in the gym. All we needed to do was start this podcast.
and be friends with LeBron James.
And now the coaching carousel is wide open because somebody's got to go coach that fourth grade AAU team. So
No,
maybe
I mean,
Dan,
I'm not coaching JJ Redick's kid. He's the head coach of the Lakers. It's a lot of power in that.
there's a lot of power in that.
Before he was
Apparently,
just JJ Redick, the podcast host.
what's
You know,
hilarious is, and I know this probably won't happen either, but Bronny worked out for the Mavs, and so there was a picture somebody made. It was like Luca, Kyrie, LeBron, and Bronny, in Mavs uh, uniforms. Which, as a Mavs fan, I don't really want to see that. But part of me hopes that LeBron does move on from the Lakers because then that makes this whole JJ thing like that much more interesting and dynamic. Because if the only thing Occam's razor is that he is supposed to go there and just manage LeBron. But if LeBron ends up, demanding a trade or whatever, or he wants to play with his kid and his kid ends up somewhere else and he goes there, then it's like that John Travolta meme where you're just kind of like looking around from Pulp Fiction going like, well, what now? What do I do now?
well, so I did read that somewhere. I think that, like, LeBron has given no guarantees that when his deal is up. I think his deal is up in 2 years. Like, he's given no guarantees that he's going to stay with the Lakers. He could still opt for a trade. Like, I think he has the ability in his contract to opt for a trade. All of this, like,
Hmm.
you're betting the house on JJ Redick to keep LeBron around
Maybe
when
the
LeBron
Lakers are
has made it
playing.
clear that he wants to play with his kid and then perhaps even eventually coach his kid.
What if the Lakers are playing 3D chess while we're all playing shoots and ladders, and the Lakers want to get rid of LeBron, but they can't come out and publicly say it. So they go out and they hire JJ Redick, knowing that they're intentionally not gonna hire Bronny or draft him. So it forces LeBron to move on, and that's how they wipe the slate clean and begin to rebuild. Because they can't get another superstar to want to come play with him. But you've got an opportunity maybe to go get an Anthony Edwards in a
Mm,
couple of years as he ages and develops and hits his prime. And maybe this is their way of going about it, saying, "Hey, this is how we get rid of the aging superstar." What about that?
that is a conspiracy theory that I can get behind. JJ Redick, the ultimate sicko, in cahoots with the Lakers brass. This is how we're going to get rid of LeBron. We're going to give him exactly what he wants.
Yep, that's
I
how you
I
do
don't
it.
know. There's something to it. There's something to it.
Mark it down. You heard
You
it
know
here first.
what happened to the boy who got everything he wanted, you know?
You heard it here first.
Kyle, I will listen.
The dog that
There,
chases a car eventually catches one and goes, "Oh, crap."
I don't know what to do with it. Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting one though. Like I listen, ultimately too, like here's the real question then. Is JJ Redick's future as a coach tied to LeBron's decision making on and off the court?
On June 24th, 2024, I have to say yes, because that's all we know. Because we don't know if the dude can coach or not. Will he get another coaching job after this one? If I'm betting, if I'm a betting man, I'd probably say no.
Well,
Odds
I
would be
mean, there's
stacked
always
against him.
the well, it'll probably be sixth grade by then, but the sixth grade Brooklyn Boys Basketball Academy.
Correct. We can always jump back in there.
You can always, yeah, you can always go down a level. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that is an interesting thing too. Like, what is, obviously he just got the job today, and we're already deciding his future. But like, what happens after this?
Well, you go back and you keep your podcast going, and
Sure, yeah.
you create content based on behind the scenes content of coaching the Lakers and coaching LeBron, and then you get a TV job. Like, it's ultimately this is not a bad move for him because
No,
it's
he
not
gets
like
to try something different, and he gets
the
to
other side of
experiment.
the industry doesn't go away because of this. Like,
Right.
it's he might not ever be a head coach again, but that's fine. But he might get into this thing in 6 months and be like, "Man, this sucks.
Hmm.
I don't want to do this anymore. This is unlike anything I've ever imagined. I just want to coach basketball." Well, you're not going to get to do that
Yeah.
hardly at all, especially at that quote unquote level. So I did the yeah. There's an interesting question. Is it's not even so much his ability to coach as it is tied to what LeBron wants to do in his future. I think that's more likely the
What
scenario.
What do you think happens with LeBron and JJ's relationship?
It's probably as good as it's ever going to be today.
Sure.
You know what they say, or if you are a coach and you're out there and you've ever gotten a head coaching job, if you are trying to get a head coaching job, great piece of advice: you will never be more popular than the day you're hired, and you will never be more popular than the day before your first game, before your first loss. So whatever you want, if there is an ask, if you want a new locker room, if you need a new floor, if you want to renovate this, if you want to go in there and ask for something, that's the time to do it because that's
Hmm.
as good as it's ever going to get. And even if you go on and win 10 championships, you're still pissing people off along the way. Like, there's not one coach out there that can go through an undefeated season and have everybody happy with them. But you hadn't done anything wrong yet at this point at the press conference. I think to me, that's the most interesting piece of this story is not whether he can coach or not, but the interpersonal dynamics between him and LeBron during a game. Like, the amount of Brian Windhorst, LeBron body language expert coverage we're going to get in between halftime. Did you see how he looked at Redick? He came off and he didn't dap him up. LeBron was throwing a fit and Redick told him to get back, or Redick didn't tell him to get back. What is he doing? You know, he's yelling at this guy, but he's not doing this to LeBron. Like, that's going to ultimately be it. And as we talked about a couple episodes ago, I'm not here for any of that ultimately. I just want to watch good hoop and want to be entertained by the game. But we will manufacture so much content and storyline out of this that you and I will probably end up getting turned off by it and we won't really pay much attention to it. Because it will be the ultimate reality show, as you said earlier. Like, we've got to find a way to make it interesting for those that don't find sport or the game interesting.
I already have a very low tolerance for the NBA. Like I don't watch it a lot. This makes me not want to care anymore at all. Like as we're sitting here talking about this, we've been talking about it for about 40 minutes now. It like at what point is and this is probably a I don't want to say a redundant thing that we've talked about, but like at what point does it jump the shark from sport to entertainment? And like the Lakers say they want to win, they haven't been winning.
Hmm.
Since LeBron got there, they haven't won anything. Besides, what was it?
Oh, they won the bubble.
They won the bubble when the world was shut down. He's run off every coach that's ever coached him. And now we're just gonna hire this guy just to satiate it. You know what I mean? Like I just that's the type of shit that as a coach, as somebody who takes this seriously, as somebody like and again, I think this is a relatable thing for whatever level you coach at, whatever level of job that you do. When people just like get to go do whatever they want, it rubs me the wrong way. Because there's
I,
no way that if I were to get a head coaching job tomorrow, I could go to a press conference and just drop multiple F bombs at reporters.
hmm
There's no way. The amount of hubris that it takes to do that and the arrogance that it takes to do that is somebody who knows that this is a no lose situation for them. Because if he ends up winning a lot, see, I told you.
hmm
If they don't win anything, well, I was unqualified. They hired me, right?
yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's a no lose situation for JJ Redick. And the privilege to be able to just go back to his podcast, to go
hmm
back to
Get
ESPN,
to get in the studio. Yep.
get in the studio, do whatever. And again, no hate. This is not JJ Redick's fault. But the system that allows somebody like JJ Redick to get this needs to be like seriously looked at to me.
It needs to be vetted. Just the understanding the causal effect of how you get to this point, because like you said, this is relatable. There, somebody listening to this podcast right now at a junior high or a high school level somewhere is grinding their asses off trying to get a job, and then all of a sudden somebody moves in from out of nowhere. And life is not fair. Let's get that out of, like, we
Mhm.
understand these things, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes things work out, sometimes things happen for a reason. Sometimes the job you wanted and you didn't get was the best thing that ever happened to you.
Absolutely.
Understandably
Absolutely.
so. But I've got people that are DMing me weekly about job searches, hiring,
Mhm.
how's it going? How's it going? How's it going? Can't get a sniff. I hear you. Like, and I DM me next week too and let me know what's going on and how this sort of hits you in a
Mhm.
way, because I'm interested to kind of know. And again, just I usually I have a lot of words and I know I've said a lot of them tonight. I don't know many of them made sense, but it is just flabbergasting
It's
that
exhausting.
this is the topic tonight. And
Mhm.
this might be the weirdest episode we've ever done.
Mhm.
The weirdest topic, the weirdest, maybe the biggest haterade episode we've done, or um, maybe the most random one we've done. But in some aspects, for the people that are listening, it might be the most relatable episode.
Mhm.
we've ever done. And if you're still listening and hanging in there with us, first off, we appreciate you. But let us know kind of how this is hitting you. And again, if you're in the middle of those job searches and you're not finding it, or maybe you have an example relative to scale similar to this, please let us know. We'd love to hear about it and kind of vet it and talk you through it.